When I was 9 years old, I asked my parents for 2 turntables and a mixer. And when I turned 10, they surprised me. And it's probably the most life-changing gift of my entire life. I looked up to Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, and Grandmaster Flash. Those were my superheroes. They were my Spider-Man, my Captain America, and my Superman. Seeing Kool Herc in the car with the speakers coming out, that was just mind-blowing to me. And I looked into, as a young kid, what kind of music they played. And I quickly learned that they weren't playing hip-hop, because there was no hip-hop. They were playing soul, funk, disco, rock and roll, reggae, Latin music, everything. And bringing all those sounds together to create something new. And that completely fascinated me. I became enamored by the concept of being able to play everything. And I made it my mission as a young kid to be completely undefined as a DJ, and to be the DJ that people would call on to play all music for all people all over the world. And that was my motto, and that still is my motto today. The soul music of the late 70s and early 80s stuck out to me to be the most universal dance music of all time. No matter where I was and who was in front of me, if you threw on one of the classic records of that era, they not only worked, but they killed. And they put an emotion, a spirit, and an energy in the air like no other kind of music. And that music became a huge part of my DJ career. It by no means was what I played every night, but it was what I wanted to play every night. It made my body move differently. It made me talk differently on the mic. I felt myself just expand when that music was on. We often refer to the 70s and 80s, but that's such a broad thing. And it was way too broad for me. And I had to zero in on what exactly was getting my blood going. And it was the up-tempo soul records from 1978 to 1982. And I said, in order to channel this sound, I need to go back to the source, to these men behind the music, the architects of the sound. It became very apparent that the producers and the recording artists of the greatest records of this era were essentially recruiting the same session musicians. Some of the session musicians were in bands that were gigantic big bands, and some were the men behind the scenes. So over the past 4 years, I reunited 22 of the most legendary and renowned musicians of the late 70s and early 80s in one room for the first time in over 30 years to channel their definitive sound with no covers, no interpolations, no samples, no nothing but the human hand.